Effectiveness doesn't always need loud recognition or praise. On the contrary, it often exists quietly, seldom judged or criticized, whether fairly or not. In the world of royalty, effectiveness isn't measured by flowery words or grand displays. Instead, it is revealed through the heavy silence in those unseen moments of power transition. The crown is not merely a prestigious reward for leaders, it is a symbol of responsibility, perseverance, and relentless sacrifice. The stage lights may shine brilliantly, and the applause may roar loudly, but those who wear the crown must remain steadfast regardless of the spotlight or shadows. Not for the sake of applause, but because they carry the weight of a legacy, a nation, and a history spanning centuries. The burden of the crown cannot be measured by words or images. It is the continuation of enduring values and inner strength, a weight only those with true courage can bear. If you found this story interesting, leave a comment with the number 1. If not, leave a comment with the number 0. Don't forget to like, share the video, and drop your thoughts in the comments below to let us know what you think. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more exciting videos about royal stories. Now let's begin the story together. Behind the grandeur of Buckingham Palace, a quiet story unfolds. No headlines announce it, no trumpets sound. Yet there is one who always knows. Anne, the crownless princess, the silent guardian of truth and stillness. Within an old diary, its pages worn and ink faded by time, a new chapter is being written. This chapter does not begin with fireworks or royal banquets, but with a gentle, deliberate withdrawal. No one notices, yet Anne has felt it for a long time. She reads the signs, not in words, but in glances and silences. King Charles, weary from illness and drained after a long journey, made a decision few could have imagined he would step back. There was no press release, no public statement, just a handwritten letter to his sister, the one he trusted most, and a quiet conversation behind closed doors. Neither the Prime Minister nor the press secretary was involved. He alone held the moment, taking control of the next step. A silent move, yet historic. A moment not for the public, but for preparation. The coronation of William and Catherine is fast approaching, and the world remains unaware. But Anne knows. She's marked that day in her private journal with a red circle underlined twice, like a vow etched in ink, unchangeable. Because this is more than a mere transfer of the crown. It's the dawn of a new era, not born from ambition, but from quiet determination. From a stability built by resilient souls who need no spotlight to be recognized. The values Anne has always believed in are now shining clearer than ever before. The ink on the diary page was still wet. A small blot spread slowly, as if the pen itself hesitated before inscribing what Anne's heart had long known. "It has begun," she whispered, not for anyone else to hear, but for time itself. Her voice floated softly like a breeze in the quiet room, amid the silence she had come to know so well. It wasn't a declaration of joy, but a calm acknowledgement from someone ready to embrace what lay ahead. She doubted nothing of what she knew. It was simply that at last, the truth was spoken not in words, but through actions. In recent months, Anne had noticed a change in Charles. Not through complaints, but in his increasingly gaunt figure, the way his eyes lingered too long on the portrait of Queen Elizabeth, and the sudden silences that halted every conversation. Anne had grown accustomed to reading what remained unspoken. Her brother's moments of quiet reflection, sometimes only lasting a few seconds, spoke more than any speech ever could. It was in those moments that she knew the end was drawing near. Not a surrender, but a carefully considered transition, guided by love and duty. Last Thursday, she received an invitation to Clarence House. No prior notice, no ceremony. The sunlit room had 3 chairs already arranged. No aides, no media advisors, just Charles and William. Charles sat silently, statuesque in his stillness. William stood by the window, his hands clenched so tightly they turned white. No one spoke at first. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to be said without words. No elaborate explanations, no mention of abdication, yet everyone in that room understood perfectly. Charles looked directly into his son's eyes, his gaze no longer the steely resolve of a king, but the fragile vulnerability of a man. The crown must be placed where it can endure. He said, his voice hoarse and soft, so faint that Anne had to lean in to catch every word. That was the moment history began to shift, not with a grand spectacle, but with a small, humble phrase. A brief sentence, yet one that struck at the very heart of what royalty has always guarded: continuity. And from that instant, everything changed quietly, steadily, like tectonic plates moving beneath the solid foundation of the ancient palace. That night, Anne couldn't sleep. She sat by the window in the quiet room, her eyes fixed on the misty horizon, where dawn was slowly breaking. She felt the bells soon to ring, not to bid farewell, but to signal a silent change unfolding. She recorded everything in her journal on a page marked specially for herself, or for those sensitive enough to understand. The event at Clarence House left no trace in the public eye. No news articles, no leaked images. Yet that did not diminish its gravity. Everything was kept secret as part of tradition and art of protecting what was not yet ready to be revealed. The monarchy has the uncanny ability to mask every crack with calm composure, timely smiles, and rituals repeated without missing a beat. But Anne, as both witness and keeper of memories, cannot pretend. She feels the truth more deeply than anyone. Her journal entry ends with a question not easy to face, since when did the boy who once chased her through the Balmoral hallways become the man about to lead an entire kingdom? It's not doubt in William she holds, but a clear recognition of that sacred moment when one era quietly closes, making way for a new chapter. The coronation has yet to come, but she already senses its breath in every silent pause. And Anne understood clearly this transition would not arrive with grand speeches. It wouldn't begin with an address to thousands, but through caution, silence, a calm before the storm. In her heart, the future had already taken shape, even though the date remained unannounced. And she knew she was moving forward with it, not as a mere observer, but as an integral part of the process, a silent guarantor of the values being passed down. A decision no one was truly ready for, yet unavoidable nonetheless. Step by step, Anne was entering a phase that neither her youth nor her experience could have fully prepared her for. The next morning, in the long corridor, Anne paused before the portrait of George VI. She stood still, her eyes searching for something within the gaze of her late father. For a moment, she felt as if she was witnessing the very past of the kingdom, a past preserved by faith, patience, and silent sacrifice. She recalled her father's figure from years ago, his hand trembling slightly as he placed the crown upon his head, yet never once stepping back. A symbol of steadfastness that needed no words. Now Charles, the eldest brother, had chosen to let it go. Not out of burden, but from a vision beyond. An act not easily understood, but as profound as the very history they were meant to carry forward. Anne, as always, was the first to grasp what no one else dared to say aloud. She returned to her room, walking silently, and opened her diary with trembling fingers. Under the faint glow of the desk lamp, the next words appeared. "He is letting go." Just a few brief words, but carrying the weight of an entire reign. Charles, the brother who had devoted his life to duty, was now choosing to step back. It wasn't merely a rest. It was a relinquishing of all he had once awaited and sacrificed to achieve. Yet in the voice Anne recalled from that meeting there was no hesitation or sorrow. Only a profound stillness, a stillness born from a man who fully understood who he was and had nothing left to prove. During that meeting, William said not a single word. His silence was not born of fear or hesitation, but from profound respect. Anne understood this immediately by the way William kept his gaze fixed on his father, never interrupting, never rushing. When Charles looked toward him, William gave a simple nod, a quiet gesture that carried an unspoken pact between two generations. No promises needed, no formal rituals required. The transfer had already begun in that very moment. Anne saw it clearly in William's eyes, not the young man he once was, but the man stepping into his destiny. Even before power truly arrived, dignity had already taken shape. That morning, Buckingham Palace appeared just as usual. Servants exchanged polite greetings, guards changed shifts, and the morning news played on schedule. No one in those long corridors had any idea of what had just transpired. This was how the royal machinery operated, maintaining stability through a calm exterior, even as layers of change quietly unfolded within. Anne walked slowly down the hallways, her heart heavy with contemplation. She knew time was running short. The news could not leak in the wrong way. Yet she also understood that the announcement could not be rushed. The date had to be chosen carefully, the day when history would mark a true turning point. At the end of the corridor, Anne paused and turned back, her gaze resting on the gallery of royal portraits. In the quiet stillness, she whispered a simple phrase: "It must be the right day." Because this was more than just an event. It was a turning point for the fate of a nation. Power, when passed on, is not merely a ceremony. It is the transfer of spirit, responsibility, and burden. The sunlight streaming through the chapel's stained glass that morning was unlike any other day. It cast light upon the ancient stones as if to emphasize the solemnity of the moment to come. And Anne knew that here, away from noise and public eyes, was where the true beginning lay. Deep within the palace, the small chapel, usually reserved for quiet moments of prayer, had become a space for a historic decision. Anne did not come seeking guidance. She came to confirm what she already knew in her heart. The decision had been made. Charles had stepped back and William would be the successor. But Anne also understood that power was not handed over in a single moment. It was transferred through perseverance, layers of ritual and silent consensus. Bathed in the soft light filtering through stained glass, Anne sat down in the third pew and opened her notebook. She knew clearly her next duty was no longer just to preserve tradition, but to ensure continuity not through power, but through deep understanding. The chosen date couldn't be just a convenient pick. It had to carry layers of meaning. It had to evoke trust. The night before, Anne paced her study, surrounded by old calendars, royal archives, national holidays, and her own faded notes from the past. So many moments had tried to reshape the monarchy, yet very few truly rekindled faith in it. Anne understood that this time it wasn't about grandeur or spectacle. What was needed was a return to the most fundamental truth, a realm that knows how to listen. She reminded herself that this was one of the rare moments when restoration took precedence, not power or symbolism. The people no longer needed grandeur. They needed something to believe in: a steady hand, a sincere heart. She picked out 3 dates and jotted them in the margins of her notebook. Each day carried its own significance: the Queen Mother's birthday, another coinciding with Elizabeth's first Commonwealth tour. But the date underlined twice was not one of triumph. It was the day Catherine walked alone into a nursing home facing the skeptical eyes of the public. That day, Catherine had no sponsor, no friendly press, no scripted moments. Yet she stayed for hours listening, sharing, and simply being present as a real person. Anne thought this was Catherine's true coronation, a day without a crown but full of responsibility and humanity. She marked that date not with bold strokes, but with all her trust. It's not who wears the crown that truly matters, but who dares to carry it when no one is watching. Catherine had proven that long before anyone placed the crown on her head. And now Anne had made her decision. The day was set. She held that decision in silence, as if guarding a secret nestled warmly and vividly in the palm of her hand. When she stepped out of the chapel the next morning, Anne didn't look back. She didn't need any further confirmation. Everything was clear, marked in red ink on the page, reflected in the calmness of her own eyes. The world remained unaware. Official announcements would take weeks, but the future had already taken its first steps. The layers of ceremony would follow: meetings, statements, rehearsals. Yet the most momentous moment didn't unfold in public. It happened in the shadows, in a quiet room where 2 people understood each other without words. Anne stepped into Charles's study. The door was ajar, as if even it was too weary to keep everything sealed tight. Charles sat with his back to the door, his silhouette reflected on the rain-streaked glass. No crown, no ceremony, no uniform, just a man lost in thought needing no further proof. "Strange, isn't it?" he said